Properties, default, microphone, bink. There we go. Should be hearing me. And let me get my desktop audio in gear here. Properties. And Yeti. There we go. All right, you should hear everybody now. Give me a thumbs up, Ben, Sam, Taro, to our dear lives. There they are. Okay, so we'll start over. All right. Welcome to the Lovecraft Tapes. I am Jeremy, your keeper of arcane lore, and we play Call of Cthulhu, a horror role-playing game based upon the fictional works of H.P. Lovecraft. Your investigators of the unknown were Brian as Jack Whiteside.
I am Jack Whiteside, special agent.
Gabe as Roy Arroyo.
It is me, the Roy of this podcast.
And Matt as Rocky Arroyo.
Ah, yes, the most intelligent one on this podcast, clearly.
High IQ alert.
Hi, IQ.
Fighting like brothers already. I'm going to turn off my fan. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Tonight we will be answering listener-submitted questions regarding our recently completed scenario, Chapter 8, Tryst. Spoiler alert now. We'll be discussing all the nitty-gritty details of this adventure, so if you haven't listened yet or caught up, I highly recommend you go back to episode 69, nice, and start there. Or finish up wherever you're at, you know what I'm saying. Now, before we begin, we do need to thank our current patrons, as of this recording, who have contributed to the podcast via patreon.com/Lovecraft Tapes. Your monetary support has helped pay for hosting, editing, software, music, sound effects, and other costs associated with production. Hi, Zach. Students at Miskatonic include Eric Sederberg, Oystein Boiler, Byford, Dom Driver, DW, Jeffrey Young, Jeremy Griffith, Milkamix, Rolling Boxcars, and Snow. Our professors of Miskatonic are Brittany Davis, Lobster Johnson, Anthony Imes, Brownie Davis, Daniel Caprone, Daniel Hissey, David Winterman, Eric Phillips, Eric Miles, Eric Zane, Frank Delventhal, John Imre, Malambra 57, Monda McCullough, Mitch L., Olda Polkert, Quizik, Sebastian Losansky, Sean, Tadashi Katsuran, Wouter Vermeyen. I see you, Biff. Investigators of the unknown are Chris Parker and Elizabeth Grieve. Love those guys. Mystics of the occult are Daniel Ivey and Jordy Rose. And cultists of the Starry Wisdom include Ravens in the Attic and the Demir Lobotomist. Hooray! And finally, Zach, who is on the chat right now, our one and only old one.
Aww.
We thank everybody for making this podcast possible, and cheers to you. I'm drinking a nice Stone IPA right now.
Cheers.
All right. Now, dear investigators, we recap Chapter 8, Tryst. Previously on the Lovecraft Tapes. Rescued from Bloodsworth Island by Rocky Arroyo, Jack and Roy reluctantly team up with the oddly cultivated brother and his manservant, Declan, to continue their search for Dan Williams. It seems the lovelorn former security guard might have unwittingly fallen into the hands of cultists intent upon bringing about the destruction of the world. You know, the huge. Clues lead to the inhabited island of Tristan da Cunha, where a series of murders embroils the investigators in a strange plot seemingly coordinated by Father Lee Summers, a secret follower of Dagon. Forced up the side of a volcano and nearly killed several times, the quartet of do-gooders reaches the summit, only to be confronted with a sinister game that ends catastrophically. All right, let's get to the questions. And basically, I've got a bunch here submitted by everybody. Hey. And I'm just going to start at the top and strike them off as we go along, and then we'll get to you guys as well. So, from Brittany Davis, they ask, can you elaborate on what the Reverend did to Jack? Now, I believe, Jack, wasn't this when you were sleep?
Yes.
Or actually dying?
I was dying, yeah. And I agreed that I would do anything. He said, what will you do? And I said anything to save my life.
Yeah. And that's essentially it. We sort of took that basically in my mind, he somehow infused Jack with the DNA or some sort of serum to make him part Deep One, his physical body, so that he would heal past the point of almost dying. And but we don't know for 100% sure. It's really a nebulous thing that I used as a plot hook. And I thought it would just be fun to do that. Is that kind of how you took it too, Bri?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I think it was pretty clear what I was going for.
Yeah, it kind of, I grasped more as we were going up the mountain that I felt some connection to some of the stuff that we encountered,
right.
So it led me to believe that there's nothing good in there.
Yeah. And I wanted to keep it like relatively nebulous to begin with, because I thought, okay, this will be a nice little seed that I can spring on him in,
right.
two chapters from now in my life.
You're a frog.
Yes. No. Well, actually, I was like, well, but also I think the climax where you guys were all up at the volcano lake, the thing sort of came out. Yeah. Where I needed to have that fun repartee with the host of the game show. So, all right, let's move on to here's a one from Many Lost Hours for Brian.
Oh.
They ask, would Jack have left the FBI to join Rocky's company if he had been asked? Working with Rocky looked to be a better match for him given his occult past, but Jack seems so duty-led that it could be a close-run thing.
Boy, I never thought of it. That's a really good question. I definitely would. He would be tempted to go just for the resources alone. Maybe a little bit more selfish than anything else, because Jack would be able to basically accomplish everything he's wanted to. Finding Dan being the priority, but beyond that, understanding and knowing everything that he's had questions about his whole life. So, yeah, I think maybe he'd be really tempted by that to go that route, because it is still an agency, even though it's they're fighting for the good supposedly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that might have been a good option,
a good fit. Yeah,
that would have been cool.
Nice,
still can be. Huh?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. So, Matt, Brittany Davis wants to know, what were your original plans for Declan?
Well, originally, he was Irish, not Scottish. I don't know what you got. I don't know where you got that one from, Jeremy. Other than the fact that your accents aren't the best. Let's be honest.
That's so true.
But originally, he wasn't a wall of muscle either. I originally had him planned as an ex-IRA soldier. He was a con man, so Declan was my first attempt at the criminal within the two FBI agents idea that eventually became the one chapter with Detox, where I thought it'd be an interesting dynamic to have someone on the opposite side working between these two people who were bound by law to do certain things certain ways, and then to have a third person in there who could move in and out of those boundaries whenever he wanted. So yeah, he was originally an ex-IRA Irish con man who was going to kind of worm his way in between these two.
Nice. All right. Gabe, Many Lost Hours wants to know, do you feel cheated that Roy didn't get an on-podcast end?
No, because I'm the longest living, so I win no matter what. And I know that it's all going to work out because I'm what sells the tickets and he can't dump me.
Okay, and sort of a adjunct to that, they ask, Now that Roy has gone to the great screen door inn in the sky, how did his family cope, mourn, or celebrate?
So we're all really happy, but other than them, all my family, they all got together, played some D'Angelo in my honor, and just sat around and cried watching Sports Center. Scott Van Pelt gave him a shout out so incessantly that they had to just do something to get the Arroyos to stop calling. So
Nice. All right, so we got some questions for everybody, so we can all chime in on this one. Let's see. How about Chris Parker? What one time period or location would you love to explore as a player or keeper?
2486. Just kidding. I liked the past. I thought the past was pretty freaking cool.
And what does that mean? What's the past?
Anything before cell phones, really modern technology type stuff. I thought that was cool because you couldn't just like call up another player and say, "Hey, come over to the library." You know, you had to get in a car and travel and tell them what you found and debrief, and I thought that was cool. So, anywhere from 1800s up to 50s, 60s, maybe.
All right, Matt, Gabe.
See, I think you joked about 2048. I think that'd be a great idea.
24.
Yeah.
86.
24.
97.
Yeah. You make that a joke, but I think it'd be really interesting. I mean, we've seen, Lovecraftian horror set in the 1800s, but imagine Lovecraftian horror plus cyberpunk technology, Now you have, you go far into the future, you have, implants and replacements and little computers in your brain, and what happens when you start seeing things is that, is there something really there, or is there somebody hacking into your brain causing problems? I think trying to mix that type of that Lovecraftian style of horror with the question of, when are you human and when do you not become human? Is there too much, technology? Are you a cyborg or whatnot? Would be a really interesting concept to explore.
Buy the cyberpunk RPG then.
I mean, Keanu Reeves is in it. How can you not buy it?
Right?
The cyberpunk
I think another
RPG.
podcast did the future thing, right?
Yeah. Cthulhu and Friends did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They did the future thing.
And
we'd be able to create a lot of lore.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually the hurdle, and because that stuff doesn't exist yet, and we only have referential materials and science fiction literature and other games, so like Cyberpunk, that it's still there's not much of a touch point for listeners. So I resist personally, even though I love science fiction horror like Event Horizon, that sort of thing. To me, it would have to be a very specific story. And it's rough for me to think about having something like that be an ongoing thing without it being a short-lived. There's a reason that Jason X is like, it's one movie in the masterpiece theater of all the Friday the 13th movies. Jason X stands alone as the one sort of like science fiction-y future movie. So I don't know. And I'm perfectly happy in the modern thing because I don't. I've never really liked the 1920s or Gaslight era. It doesn't really spark my imagination. To me, that's not scary, right? And so, to me, it's trying to find a modern equivalent for horrific things to be happening that it could be real, like as close to real as you can get it, right? That's been my philosophy.
I got the best answer. Like to do the most solving crimes in the disco 70s.
Fashion crimes, mostly.
Fashion crimes.
Cocaine the Arroyo family ingested in that
I
era.
love it. That would be fun, actually. As a one-off, that'd be hilariously fun.
It's
So,
all the Arroyo brothers get together and solve a crime.
all right. Let's move along, and we have a question from Byford, who says, if you could choose an insanity to gain, either temporarily or permanently, what would you choose?
Probably be afraid of plants.
That's been done. That's been done.
Oh, boy.
Ooh.
What was the one that Roy had? I liked that one. Where he thought he could fly and nothing could hurt him. I don't know. That's a crazy question. There's always a downside to insanity. So
Yeah, I mean, it's but like maybe certain insanities would be more entertaining in the podcast space.
But that wasn't the question.
No, but I think the reason for you choosing
Yeah.
is open ended.
Favorite, the one that I think I'd have the most fun doing, because I basically do it anyway, would just be like an insane, intense delusion of grandeur where I believe that everything that's going on is about me.
Oh yeah, that was good. It's good.
Just go full narcissist.
Yeah, like godlike complex for sure. I don't know. I've always really liked the person who thinks that they can ward off evil by drawing symbols everywhere, even on their own skin. I like that sort of thing. So
like an invincibility feeling. Yeah, that would be cool too. Until you get killed.
All right, we'll do one more round of this before we get to some of your guys' questions. BCP asks me, how much writing goes into your campaign in terms of pages and time spent on it?
4 pages.
3 pages. It's just an outline. No.
And some doodles.
No. So it's a lot. I do a lot of writing, and so in terms of each episode that you hear, it is generally 2 single-space pages worth of things, whether that's snippets that I think are going to occur. I try to plan for any of their actions and introduce introductory text for people or places or whatever. But so each episode gets at least 2 single-space written pages. Then you have the epilogue and the prologue, and so those get a lot more. But that's all fiction, so I write pretty heavily into that. As far as time spent working on it, you can bet that setup is usually about 3 hours for every episode. The editing at the other end of it is about 8 to 12 hours of editing. So it's pretty substantial. Like we get together and we record something that's usually about 2.5 hours thereabouts, because we do a little pre-show and then we do a little cleanup at the end. So all told, each episode has, 15, 20 hours into it. So it's pretty time intensive, but I think hopefully the quality comes through and that you guys enjoy that part of it. So for me, it's okay. It's okay. BCP also wants to know, how much did the players derail your plans in Chapter 8? A little bit, for sure. I mean, for the most part, the mystery was set up to begin with. So of all the ones that I've designed or run, this one was probably the least open-ended, because they're in a very isolated island. And even though they weren't railroaded, at a certain point, it was fate that they had to go a certain way. So, for instance, it was already set up that if they drank too much of the beer, then they could potentially go insane, because that was going to be a weak point for them. And of course, Roy went straight there.
Straight for the beer.
Straight for the beer. Straight for the doing too much of the beer, even with warnings and effects.
And that knowing that it would happen, he's gonna try and act like he didn't single me out, but he definitely did.
Well, I mean, anybody could have went in there when you guys split up, so it could have been anybody to stumble upon that. It worked out for the best, but but that also led to Jack getting shot and almost dying, which also led to him being saved at the last minute by Father Summers. So, there was a lot there that was unplanned, and it didn't necessarily derail the plans because I'll let you guys in on another little secret here. So, even though I have a basic concept of the scenario, like the beginning and the ending, I'm still plotting each chapter. Each episode is plotted as we go along. So I incorporate what was done the last time and slightly shift the flow of the plot or the things that are opened up in the plot. and so I find that's been my most comfortable way to plan these sessions out. And it's worked out pretty well because I can the tempo is I can get a pretty good cliffhanger at the end of each episode, and I can just keep it. It's just a really good rhythm for me. So for the most part, the scenarios are being written as they're played out, except for the main core. So I plot around that. Cool. I introduce other characters that weren't there at the beginning and so forth. So it just depends.
Like the volcano.
Like the volcano was never there. No.
Never there.
That's true. No. Okay.
Surprise.
Let's go to, we got one for Matt. Let's do Matt. Matt. From Brittany Davis. Was Rocky purposefully added, or were you fed up with losing characters and decided to add some extra drama?
Fed up with losing character. I mean, I understood when I started Call of Cthulhu that character death is something that is
very rare to most of us.
At some point, you're going to lose a character. Is it frustrating losing, multiple characters in a row, or like I would at the end of 7 with Detox, I was enjoying where I was with that character, and it made it really hard to kind of let go because I was really enjoying that and I wanted to keep going with it. And as much as I want to, be mad about it, it's something that happens and you just got to kind of keep going. As for where Rocky came from, I believe that started as a joke where I had a different kind of character plan. I think it was either Brian or Gabe who made the joke that I should make an Arroyo brother. And it took a bit of convincing of Jeremy to kind of let me create that character. But yeah, it was an interesting road to creating Rocky. Because I have a couple of leftover character designs that I've kind of stashed away on my own. I have like a private game in Roll20 solely for the purpose of creating characters. And I still have a couple of half-baked character designs floating around at some point or another. So I always have something kind of ready and waiting to go.
Sweet.
Had to consult me for a lot of Arroyo lore.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to make sure it fit in with the Arroyo family.
Yep.
All right, Gabe. Byford wants to know, or Byford wants you to make a choice. Choose between A, a classic but tattered screen door, or B, a shiny new but soulless screen door, which is a limited edition.
Say right off the bat that I'd take both because it's a world where you can control your own destiny. But if you had to pick one, I would take the classic but tattered screen door because I love the feeling of repairing it back to full health and that sense of accomplishment that is brought alongside that.
That's right. Nurse that baby back to health. You just pop out your boob and
exactly like that.
Get out of this old screen door.
It's like a cheese grater against his nipple.
And Brian, Many Lost Hours wants to know, what was the plan for the tentacle in the bathtub before Roy got trigger happy?
Well, I was told I'm not able to discuss that pending lawsuit.
So many questions end like that. Before Roy shot it, what was the plan before Roy shot it?
What would have happened?
We were going to take samples and I think send them off to a lab. It was my plan.
Sure.
And then, got to keep it fresh. So After that, we were probably just going to go like on a week's vacation or something to the Bahamas.
Yeah. Just get to know each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best
Take
way.
it slow.
Vacation.
Take it slow.
Yeah.
See if the tentacle really likes pina coladas and getting caught in the rain.
Yeah. Well, the rain for sure. Keeps it moist.
If it's not into yoga, if it has half a brain.
All right.
I can keep going if you want.
Please do. Our Polner wants to know, how did I get into brewing?
Should you really divulge that though?
Yeah, I should actually.
Okay. Good luck, guys.
Well, I mean, obviously, I like beer, and I was always really interested in like how that was created. So I think somebody got me a Mr. Beer kit one Christmas. I think it might have been my wife. And so I made a beer. It was horrible. I made a second beer, which was good. And then I got really interested. I was like, well, I like this one beer from Shorts, the Bel Air Brown. What do they use? So I researched it and went on forums, and I was like, oh, they use this one particular kind of yeast. And I went to homebrew shops, and I was like, you can actually buy that yeast. So I immediately attempted it, and it turned out great. And it was like the third batch I made, and I was in love with brewing from that moment forward. And of course, from there, I've taken it, and I actually got out of it for quite some time. When we had our condo, I just didn't really have the room to do it. So I gave up all the stuff, never really got into it again. I think it was a good space of 10 years, something like that. And then, of course, once we got our house here in southwestern Michigan, I ponied up for a real kit, like all grain brewing, and I really like it.
I do too.
It's fun. So yeah, I mean the product is amazing. So
now, how I got started in is I got my brother's old Mr. Beer kit, and I made batch after batch that sucked ass, and I never will brew again by myself. Ding-a-ling. I don't have the scientific talent for that.
All right, we've got a bunch of questions here from Quizzic, and tell me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Quizzic. How much freedom do you have when making your character and coming up with the backstories, or do you work closely with Jeremy during the background building process to make sure it fits the setting and doesn't go too overboard?
I could take that. With Jack Whiteside, I basically did the whole thing and ran with it, and then just let him look it over to make sure we were covered. But the other guys maybe have a different opinion. No? Cool. Then on this podcast,
like I said earlier when I was talking about Rocky, there was a bit of consulting and contrived reasoning to try and get Rocky, to try and allow Rocky as an Arroyo brother character. But by and large, when I do, like with Detox, it was like, hey, I have this idea of I want to make a character, and I kind of gave him the idea of I wanted to do a criminal in between two FBI agents. And I just gave him like a rough outline of what I was thinking, and that's all it took for him to give me a go-ahead to kind of finish off Detox.
You mean finish him off?
Yeah, him or her.
Consulting whatsoever. He just threw it out there, and they're like, fine.
Here it is. Yeah, and I don't, when making the character, I don't put too many stipulations on it, other than it does need to fit certain parameters. So, for instance, we had to make a connection, like, why are these jackalopes even working together? So,
FBI or...
we had to make, like, okay, it makes sense that Roy would be in with Jack, that sort of thing.
But that was it, really.
Yeah.
That was it.
And generally, we're able to do that without help.
Yep.
Need to.
Yeah, and it's but as far as the backstories, nothing really, like, I let you guys pick all your picadillos and fears and scars and things like that, and as long as they don't go crazy with certain powers or skills or anything like that, then I'm fine with it.
He didn't let me make Roy immortal.
That's true. I didn't let you do that for whatever reason.
Jerk.
So, and I will say that, and only because of the frequency thus far of Matt's characters dying, then I worked more closely with him, because it's been a challenge to insert his new character into the ongoing storyline, particularly if it's mid-scenario or something like that. So,
yeah.
But we figured it out. It's, it all worked out to the best, I think. So, all right, let's see what we got here. Here's a good one from Many Lost Hours. How in depth was the Arroyo family history worked out? Was it a collaboration between Matt and Gabe alone, or was Jeremy involved? So similar.
Mm-hmm.
Matt was barely even involved.
I was going to say the Arroyo family is all Gabe.
I think they might meet
brothers
between the brothers,
character.
though, is what they might be asking.
Rocky
and Roy.
Yeah.
I'll explain my thinking process with the Arroyo family. I don't write anything down, ever. Ideas in my head and throw them out into episodes sometimes and hope they don't contradict themselves. And whenever I'm trying to write something like boredom or whatever it needs to be, if I'm I'm working on a Patreon episode that we're going to record one day finally, just kind of scrounge through all the old ones and try and make sure that I'm remembering it right. But I also know that if I get it wrong, that could be funny as well, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I basically have an outline for what I think the history of the Arroyos is, and as long as I don't break that mold, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly right. And I don't think I think maybe. Well, it all started with Gabe writing that short story, right? Of like what happened to you, how did your fear come about of the frogs and so forth. And so some things were just fleshed out at that point. And so there wasn't much collaboration. I helped you tweak a few things in that and sort of, but you established the Arroyo timeline and family. And then these three guys came up with the voices and all that stuff. I let them just have at it so that we could do the scene. And that's it. I'm Greta, the wife, and Ray. Ray is Ray, right?
Amen, Ray.
Yeah.
Ray.
Yeah.
And I'm also the three mute ones, so
Yeah.
it's all good. Okay, cool. Let's do one more, and then we'll get to you guys' questions, or some of them. Altheos wants to know from me, okay, how did Father Summers end up knowing so much about the investigator's past?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's that's sort of a what do you call it? Hand of God moment, right? So I needed something, and really that we're talking about the game at the end, where you guys and this. I just thought it would be like super cool to have this person just suddenly know things about you guys, as if and to be honest, when I wrote it, I just thought this will just simply be cool. But as I went on, I'm like, well, this actually that's a question that needs to be answered, which we can then do later on. So I sort of keep pushing off this future stuff, planting the seeds about why these things happen. And I don't know right now why Father Lee Summers knew so much about these guys, other than, he's clearly in touch with Dagon and that sort of thing, and they have their network of information.
And Dan.
And Dan, of course. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Dan would be a good font of information, presuming that Dan was working with or under the sway of the Dagon cultists. So there's many ways that it could have come about. I just thought it'd be cool to spring on the investigators to know all this stuff. Like, it just like freaked them. I was just trying as a keeper to freak them out a little bit, and I think to some extent it worked, or at least at the very least it sowed confusion.
Yeah. Yes.
So, which may not be great, but anyways. All right, Brian, you got a question for someone else?
I do. I have a question for Matt. What were your first thoughts when you crested the top of the mountain and saw Dan?
When I first saw my former self,
a book report.
My first thought was great. This might end up being a really awkward one-sided conversation between me and myself. If Rocky and Dan started talking, that would have been really interesting for me to try and pull off.
I guess take advantage of it when it's yourself.
It's like somebody else.
Tug of war.
I was really kind of in my head again, trying to like plan those initial reactions just in case, it was the real Dan and I was going to have to do something. I wanted to kind of have a rough generalization of where I wanted to take it and how I was going to try and explain things and stuff like that. So I just immediately went into like emergency planning mode on how is this going to work.
Now, do you believe that was really Dan? Second half question.
Was that actually Dan?
In your opinion, in
65 minutes and get back to us.
I don't think it was. I mean, it certainly looked like him, but I honestly don't think he would intentionally do anything to harm or hurt anyone else.
Got ya.
I mean, he really does want Sam back, but he knows that she would never forgive him if he ended up causing mass mayhem and destruction for her. Or at least that's how he sees her memory.
All right, Matt, you got a question for Gabe?
I do. So, Gabe, what would you put on Roy's tombstone? Or would you not bury him?
Pepperoni.
And would you have, so what would his tombstone say? Or if you have planned to have him cremated, would you have him sprinkled across the floor of the Larson factory?
Absolutely foolish of you to only give me two options, because we all know that Rowan dies. He's getting buried at sea like a real warrior. But if I had to, a tombstone.
Pepperoni.
Steak. Royo. With great visions for the future of screen door kind.
All right. Nice.
A father.
A father.
A father.
He's small on like the bottom of the tombstone.
Plus father.
Plus.
And he might have had some kids. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe some. I don't know.
FATH.
He left a family frequently.
Father.
All right, Gabe, you got a question for Brian?
Did it feel being the odd man out in this scenario as someone who had the least history amongst the three of us with each other?
I liked it because I could play off of both of you. I thought it was cool, but Roy and I had that, or Roy and Jack had that relationship, the experiences that we've gone through. Rocky was coming in as a straight-laced, nothing but business. So I was able to pull, because that's where that character kind of goes towards. Jack goes towards the business. And I pulled him as he pulled Dan, and then Dan pulled. We had a tug of war. So it was fun. I thought it was a good time. It definitely was a different dynamic because you guys could just go off for hours if you could have. You know what I mean? So I had to be like that.
To do that in.
I had to be that voice that would speak up over top and keep everybody on task and go. And normally I don't have to do that. Jeremy does that. But so it was kind of fun to like, guys, we got to focus here. We got to get to the top. We got to, it was good. I liked it.
All right, we're going to get to a couple of rapid-fire questions here. Many Lost Hours wants to know from me, will there be any chase scenes in the next scenario, or will you have a revolt on your hands? So the short answer is I don't know yet, but probably not. I think this was, Chapter 8 was a scenario that I wanted as many different facets of the rules and scenarios and situations to happen, and that just happened to be a chase sequence. And now that we've had a couple, I think maybe it's time to take a little rest. But I don't know. We'll see. If it crops up, then we'll do that. So
if there's a truck in it, then we probably will.
Righto. Okay. Let's do. No, I think we already sort of answered that one, but actually, let's knock these out for Matt. Many Lost Hours also wants to know from Matt. I'm going to give you 2 questions here. How many characters have you made for the next scenario?
3.
Okay. And were you happy with how Jeremy played Declan, or were there any times where he was used not how you developed him?
Well, I kind of explained earlier that he was very much played in like the opposite use of which I originally had him intended. He was not ever meant to be a big wall of muscle. He was meant to be the thin, wiry, smart, alecky, quick-talking con guy. And he's Irish, not Scottish.
Right.
Does that bother you?
Yes.
Does that bother you?
Hey,
I mean, when someone
is that what you're telling us?
All right, here's a quick little question from Byford. I like this one a lot. The impossible question. If you had to choose between the other 2, which would you save and which would you sacrifice?
Ooh.
Yeah, I would definitely kill Rocky. Not hard at all.
Now, I would kill Rocky only because it's Matt's character.
So
I'm just going to go ahead and say I'd kill myself since that's apparently what everyone wants.
I had to say it quick because Jeremy just took a big drink. I had to get that out there.
Me?
I will commit
I'd probably
Sudoku,
sacrifice.
okay.
Jack would sacrifice himself to save them, I think.
Well, that wasn't the question, though.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
You gotta
That was the
choose.
question.
You gotta
I
choose.
chose. I already chose.
Fuck,
chose.
marry, kill, Rocky Roy, Jack.
Jack would fuck himself. Okay.
Yeah. Tug of war, single man.
Me and my tentacle. All right. Okay, so I got one here
Music video.
from Mitch Larkins. What was the answer to Declan's question? Did he have a chance to survive? Well, the short answer for that, Mitch, is, of course, no, because it was a plot point that I purposely wrote, and since I was playing the NPC, then it had to transpire in this way. So there was no free will there. That was simply to push the buttons of hopefully Rocky, who didn't necessarily respond in the extreme fashion that I had hoped he would. So that was it. And of course, the answer to Declan's question, I can't quite answer that yet because there might be some stuff coming up that I can't quite divulge the whole thing.
Heartless bastard.
Mitch also
said you're bad at your job.
Mitch also asks, what was up with Roy's creepy adopted daughter exactly?
Oh my.
So to lay the cards on the table, Mitch, that was one of our wonderful patrons who got to pick an NPC, name an NPC. But of course, I take it a couple steps further and I contact this person and say, let's develop this character together. So we had some back and forth and basically created this character and thought it would just be hilarious fun. It was really a comedic element. And again, I don't necessarily know that she's out of the picture. So I can't say too much about that, but because I do sort of have plans for her, but I feel like we developed her sort of kind of simply at the beginning, but she got way more complicated towards the end. And I think that's a good thing. I really liked playing that character, and I'd like to see it developed beyond. So we'll find out in the future if Rose or Rose was your name, right?
I was gonna say I didn't know it was a Patreon character, so I hope I didn't kill your feelings too bad by changing its name.
I like pudding.
Lily was the original.
Lily.
That's
Lily Rose.
Pudding. That was a fun one to play.
I hope she comes back.
The Patreon character shows you how little information he tells us.
I like that. So Biff says she is Dagon. I like that.
Dagon likes pudding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody
when
knows
you're
that.
eating delicious pudding dimension pudding.
All right, so I'm going to go straight to one of the most fleshed out questions I've had. Lady Seed asks, I've recently finished the 2 Smoth Legacy books out by Ruthanna Emrys. Her series takes a look at the fear and prejudice inherent in H.P. Lovecraft's works and explores the other side of it. It follows one of the two survivors of the government's raid on Innsmouth and her journey to reconcile her loss and make tremulous allies of the government that slaughtered her people and now want to utilize her magic. Would you and the investigators be interested in teaming up with one of the sentient races in the mythos to achieve a shared goal?
Yes. Yeah, I would.
Anything for any reason.
Matt?
I want the shroom zombies.
Ooh.
Rocky wouldn't be happy about it, but if he was told that he had to do it by his superiors, he would do it anyway.
So
He's racist.
So we could be like sort of an enemy mine. What's the other movie? They made a series out of it. I can't remember, Brian. The Alien Nation.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That sort of thing. I think that'd be really fascinating. I mean, that would be really super, super cool. Like, if, we've never considered anything like that.
No, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking from like, okay, so if one of the characters dies, could they come back or could their new character be a mythos type creature, or something masquerading as a human kind of thing.
Right.
So
I'll get right on that.
The Arrival.
The Arrival, yeah. So I think that would be really fascinating to do, and I would love to explore that because there's an inherent drama there, and and
there's always that trust issue. There's always going to be that trust issue. That would be cool to play off of.
It would also give us a platform to explore sociological situations that are relevant to today, right? Mm-hmm. So we could play with ghouls are rather human-like. Yeah, and Quizzic's absolutely right. Ghouls have been known to in the fiction from other people to try to pass as human. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Lady Seed. I think that would be a fascinating way to go, and it definitely got my juices flowing when I read your question because it's something that we never considered. We were always just like, well, we need an FBI agent to plug in here, or we need some person who would fit this machinery. But my God, that'd be amazing. Can you imagine if Detox came back as the goo creature? and it was like somehow able to
hold on to its
well, yeah, maybe it's more than some of its parts
intellect
now,
and
right?
Ass,
Matt. Matt.
But like it would be a really interesting way to go. Like, I don't know. So I love that question so much. So I appreciate that, Lady Seed. Okay, so a few more, and then we'll do you guys again. I assume you guys have a few more questions.
See.
Okay, we'll do this one. Many Lost Hours asks me, are there plans for any Lovecraft Tales to set up the new characters or plot? And yes, I typically do the prologue and the epilogue are both fictional components, so those I utilize as my Lovecraft Tales. I haven't had a whole lot of feedback on whether or not people like the old way of the Lovecraft Tales where I would interject these little stories in between the episodes. It was kind of a device if we were running behind on our scheduling and couldn't get episodes recorded. It was rather easy for me to just write 500 words and record them real quick and zap that as a Tales. So that may happen. I haven't ruled it out. We just have to kind of see is there a demand for that. I think we've done 2 scenarios now where we've done the epilogue prologue, and it works pretty well. I like to. Okay, so Biff says he loves the Lovecraft Tales, so maybe I'll try to interject that this coming season because for me it is fun, but it is kind of a vanity thing too because those tales only peripherally added flavor to the tale, but didn't were designed as such to not influence the current scenario directly, right? And the other problem with that was I was maybe giving a little bit too much information that I wanted the listeners to know about, but not the players.
Right.
And there's no way for me to prevent the players from listening to these tales. So
After
it was
the
always
lawsuit, there's no way to prevent us.
It was always a tightrope that I had to walk to make sure that I wasn't divulging too much of the current episode. So I'll have to rethink how I want to do that. And I appreciate the feedback via chat, guys, that you like this stuff. So yeah. Who's that? Who's the creepy guy next door? Petunia.
Petunia.
Yeah.
Oh, Petunia.
Yeah.
Tell you he did.
All right, Brian, you got a question for somebody?
I do, for you.
Okay.
So what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
I won't tell anybody. Just let me know.
In detail.
Guys,
I'll whisper it. I'll whisper it.
Plug your ears and everybody don't
Jack Whiteside.
Don't watch.
This is ASMR.
Oh God, I'm not going to be on this podcast anymore then.
Right now, I'm going to eat a cheese sandwich.
No, I can't stand that sound. Okay, real question. Did you have to make any drastic changes as we moved up the mountain? Like, was there a potential for all of us to die before we got to the top?
Yes.
Okay.
I made no changes.
Don't elaborate.
I made no changes.
Okay.
The danger was there. It was inherent. Yeah.
I
everybody felt it. Even the listeners chimed in. They were very stressed out too, and I certainly was, and I know you guys certainly were at certain points. That the lava, and I think someone in chat actually said something about the lava.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, it's the lava wasn't chasing them up the mountain. It was just a representation of how they were dodging things. So we had to kind of simplify the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
But the lava went upwards. Yeah, it was.
Well, it could have been coming out from under our feet, though. The side of the mountain.
Yes.
That's what I thought of when I was like, you have to get up. Go.
Yeah. So
Physics be damned. Here on the Lovecraft tapes, we have anti-gravity lava.
Exactly. Matt, you got something?
I do, for Brian.
I don't want to.
So, at the end of the last chapter, you were the one who took the initiative to push what might have been or might not have been Dan into the waters of the lake.
Yes.
So do you think there's any kind of connection between that, the fact that you were the only person to have an interaction with Dan and you ending up in Dan's body? Do you think there's some sort of connection there? Like, was that interaction what caused you to end up in that body?
Well, I do now. Jackass. No, I have not thought of that. My only thought at that time as the character was to save you guys. Because he's like, Dan's not here right now. And I'm like, oh, shit. So my first reaction was just to shove him off of there and try to save you guys. That was it. But now that I'm thinking about it, you jerk. That's probably what happened. I should have pushed him into you.
Last one to touch
and you
him.
could have played yourself playing yourself. What?
I've been a dude disguised as a dude disguised as another dude.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's. I wasn't even thinking of it, but that's all I'll be thinking of now for the next couple weeks.
Thanks for the idea. Gabe.
For Matt, just like when you create characters, is it now part of your intention to make them someone I would hate, or naturally as a person?
Be honest.
No, honestly, when I make a character, I make a person that I think is going to be interesting. When it comes to like mixing up the dynamics of the group, I look for something that's going to be fun for me to play, and I look for something that's going to be fun for the audience to listen to. And
When's
it's also
going to happen? Just kidding. I'm kidding.
So mean.
He knows I'm kidding. He puts a lot of work into his characters.
That's true. All right.
It's a lot of work into making sure that they're the adverse of me.
I'm pretty sure you were the one who originally made the joke about or pushed to make it an Arroyo brother. So
I think you're right.
You made your own bed.
I originally made the idea, though. I wanted it to be two Roy Arroyos working together to annoy Jack.
Oh. All right. All right, cool. So Many Lost Hours asks me, Rocky seemed to have some knowledge of spells, but couldn't use it. So do you put any restrictions on new player characters? We kind of already answered this. And no, I don't really put any kind of restrictions. And I'm not sure that Rocky had spells specifically, right? You have knowledge of encounters and things like that, but I don't think you have any spells, do you?
Working in the company has given him knowledge of magic and what it is and how it operates, but he can't himself do any kind of magic stuff yet. I mean, maybe at some point in the future it'll come up, but as of now, it's just he knows of it and how it works, but he can't manipulate that in any way himself.
Right.
Jack had a spell, and I was going to use it if I could get close enough, but it never happened.
All right. I'm trying to get my webcam to go not mirrored or whatever.
Oh,
let's see.
I see it correctly.
Do you really?
Yep.
Okay, because they say, you know what it is? I'm capturing my screen, so on my screen it's actually mirrored, so that kind of sucks. And I can't change it while it's being used. So
it says I love screen doors. Anybody was wondering?
Yeah. In case you can't quite see that.
The E's are 2 screen doors.
It says surround.
No, here I'll show you the other side.
The flash.
See?
There you go.
Much better.
All right.
Muchos gracias.
All right, let's go here. We got a few more questions, not too many. Let's see. This would be for Gabe. This is a very pertinent question.
Gabe.
If Roy was a wrestler in WWE, Raw, etc., what would his signature move be and why?
Oh boy.
He'd be a hardcore wrestler, obviously. You know, Extreme Rules is fun. What would happen there is it's built up with the screen doors to get a pass to be able to break the screen door over someone's head, with the understanding that once the match ends, he will be tending to it.
Gotta do those repairs, yo. Backstage pass sales are skyrocketing to watch him fix that screen door.
It'd be like a for my opponent, but this inanimate object is very important to me.
Dig Daddy. All right. Here's one that's similar. This is for all you guys. This is an amazing question from Chris Parker. It requires a little bit of thought from you guys, so I want you to really think about this. This is for Chris. This is for all the money.
All of it?
If your investigators had their own intro walk-up music, what would it be? That's a great question.
The theme from Stardew Valley would be mine.
How's that go?
I don't know.
Which theme?
But it's nice, it's mellow, it's consistent. Matt?
Something in the realm of like James Bond. It's like generic like spy music, obviously.
Nice.
Okay, With a Gun by Steely Dan.
What was it?
Steely Dan.
What was the song?
With a Gun.
With a Gun. I don't know that
Boys
one.
with a Gun.
Oh, Boys with a Gun?
Roy's with a Gun.
Oh. So it's a song that doesn't exist. I got it.
It was a song.
It's a song, but
It's a song.
shut up.
It's from Pretzel Logic.
Shut up.
Roy with a
Steely
Gun.
Dan knowledge. That's not my fault.
That's true. That's true. I don't know that one. How's that go?
It's pretty simple.
Roy has got a gun.
Do, 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 do.
You could use Aerosmith too if you'd like. Your favorite
Aerosmith
Said no one ever. All right. So Quizzic had a soul-searching one here, too, that was pretty interesting. To me, how much do you implement and explore your own fears and phobias when writing a scenario for the players? Have there been any themes by now that have come alive in the actual play from your own fears? I don't know, because I don't I don't really. I guess the only fear that sort of comes out is, and I keep trying to like get the people or get the investigators to do this, is like be isolated someplace, right? To be isolated alone and kind of in a strange situation where there's a shadow, right? I throw a lot of shadows at you guys.
Yeah,
And that's
Throwing
like the worst
shade,
feeling.
man.
Where
the kids nowadays call it shade.
and
Yeah.
actually, this is from the get go when I had you guys wake up, and there was like a presence in the room. Now
Yeah.
that's a fear that
Santa. Oh,
Yeah,
there were presents in the room.
oh,
Oh boy,
shit.
it's Christmas.
It's a present. Brian knows this, that once upon a time, and I meant to put this in the Discord. I started a sort of unsolved mysteries channel. Is when I was young, I would say maybe, let's say 10 or 11. And we lived in Florida. And it was Easter morning. Of course, you're waiting for the Easter Bunny to come because he's real. And, whatever, have the Easter baskets. And I looked out. My brother and I were, and not Brian, my other brother Jesse, and I were laying in the dark. And I woke up, it's pre-dawn. Maybe it's like 5 a.m., something like that. So a little bit of light coming through the screens and whatnot. But so I can see directly into the living room. And in the living room was a head on the coffee table. I could just see the outline of the head. And I'm like, it must be something else. You're 10 or 11. It's the dark. You're half asleep. And I'm like looking, and it's like just that weird, when you get that feeling like something isn't quite right, and that shape isn't exactly what you think it is. And then the head swiveled toward me and looked straight at me. And I dove underneath the covers, and I was scared shitless and the whole thing. And so that kind of plays into what the investigators, when they have these dreams and they wake up and they see these shadowy shapes. So I think that's sort of my fears and phobias, or at least I'm not really scared, but like there's no worse feeling to wake up and there's like somebody standing there right next to your bed. It's the worst, creepiest thing.
Yes.
Even if it can be explained, or like your spouse got up or your mom and dad came in, whatever. It's
or
still
if it's
just
your
like,
daughter that's standing next to your bed and says, "Daddy," and you scream at her because you're terrified when you wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. So that's how I incorporated my, and I guess it's become a theme because I've interjected it in quite a few of the scenarios. So there you have it. That's that. All right, we
That
just got
is that.
a couple more questions. This is
All
a
right.
quick and easy one from Many Lost Hours. Will there be any 1920s scenarios or one-shots coming up? We have nothing planned. It's not something that we've ruled out, particularly as
Right.
a one-shot. I wouldn't think that there'd be any opportunity, at least in the foreseeable future, for the main storyline to be a 1920s, unless I want to do some retro, Genesis story of Roy Arroyo's great-great-grandpa or something. But I don't think it's going to happen. But a one-shot is not ruled out for sure, because we're always looking for something to break up the monotony and something to throw to our patrons via Patreon. So,
Yep.
All right, I got 3 more questions. Do you guys have any questions left?
I've got one left for Gabe.
Okay.
As a player, so not your character, as a player,
Hey, playa.
would you still have made that same choice of kid to sacrifice? Why or why not?
Probably wouldn't have, because I didn't think about it, because I wasn't even thinking. I probably would have just gone with one of the mutes because they don't matter. But had to do it
As
fast
a player.
matter. Do it fast because I wanted it to be funny.
Yeah.
Just said the first name that I could think of that wasn't like Raymond or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I figured that's what it was. Just curious. After hearing the prologue, you're like, oh boy.
I even know the mutes' names offhand, so
Matt, anything more?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
Gabe?
how much research on Tristan's Dacuna did you do, or did you just make everything up?
No, I did extensive research. I read their wiki. I watched videos of people who went to Tristan da Cunha because it is a not necessarily a tourist destination, but a sort of like a pinnacle. If you're an adventurer, you have to get to this place because it's so hard to get to. And to me, that was very important to know that and to get a real feel for the landscape. And that's how I came up with like the ramshackle buildings that look kind of like warehouses with just metal siding and so forth. You can actually go online and see videos taken at this place. It looks very nice. It's very idyllic, sort of like countryside. But it's also like someplace I can't imagine ever visiting or living. So yeah, and how freaking creepy is that there actually was a volcano eruption back in the 60s. I mean, it's just like I can only imagine the terror that these people,
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's that. So okay, last few questions here. Quizzic says, what inspired you all to make a podcast like this? Was it just for kicks, or did you set out with the mindset that you will make it into something? And how much has this success surprised you?
This podcast is my long-term life plan. I plan on,
We did it all for the
glory of love.
I can't even say it. No, we just did it to keep in touch and to play a game. We all get so busy. This made us take time out to have fun, and then it turned into something a lot more than that, I think, personally. And I'm blown away all the time by the people talking about us and meeting people that have heard of our podcast, and it's really, really cool. And it's fun to know that we are entertaining for somebody, and that we can put something out that people want to listen to. I want to listen to it. So, every week I look forward to it as well. So that's my opinion.
I think I don't know how many people out there that are listening. I think I'm the only one in this group, but Critical Role has always been kind of an inspiration for me. Just seeing how much fun it's a really great way to show people just how much fun tabletop RPGs can really be when you get into it, and when you really like lean into story and character.
Mm-hmm.
And that I know that was a big inspiration for me, and a big point of I watched these people for so long. I was like, you know what, I kind of want to try this. So when the opportunity came along to do this podcast and have an excuse to regularly play a tabletop role-playing game, I was all for it. And it's really great to see just how far we've come and how much support we have. And I mean, because everybody at least at some point in their life is like, hey, let's do a podcast. Because it's something that's so easy and cheap to do that you kind of go, well, we'll give it a shot, and there's a chance that it's just going to end up being us listening to ourselves for all eternity. So to have
all eternity,
yes,
Jesus
for all eternity.
I've got to get going, guys.
So to see people enjoying what we're doing is really humbling, because when it's just you and your friends, it's always fun and entertaining, and you always find each other funny. But to know that there are other people out there that enjoy the things that we do, and our humor and our brand is really, really awesome.
I obviously came late to the party because George found success in life, so he gave this up. The whole tabletop RPG games thing, which I'm gonna put them on blast and say that I want in the future Patreon episodes where we use our characters in non-games, Vampire the Masquerade. Just saying. So when they said when Brian was like, "Oh, hey, we play Lou podcast," I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Not even really thinking about the podcast aspect,
right?
Just because I wanted to play it, because I've been busier, so I haven't had as much time as I used to do it. And now this, like Brian says, this forces us to do it all the time. So
it's like a death march. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
forces you to have fun because when the minute we all get on here and we start talking, we click and we're ready to go, and it's a great time. It's a lot of fun.
But only because we have to have fun.
Yes, yeah, it's mandatory.
Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. No.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
I still don't know why we have fans, but I'm glad we do.
Yep, and I can't add anything to those comments, so we'll move along. Chris Parker says, there's so much that goes into playing an investigator in search of the truth, from rooting through old files for clues, to finessing info from locals, to shooting the odd creature or phone from someone's hand. Which aspect of investigation is your favorite?
Ooh, I think this last time, digging through files and gathering information, and I think I really enjoyed that a lot in this last scenario. That was fun with finding the letters on the back of every item and tying that all together and finding the map down underneath and, deciphering what that meant. I thought that was really cool for me. And it better this than brute force, which is usually what we do. Cap. So, I really enjoyed that. I liked doing the heavy on the investigation side. Santa?
Matt?
I really enjoyed the role-playing aspect, the whole social point of being able to put yourself into different situations as a different person and to be able to do things that you could never be able to do in real life. And I think I love the social aspect of investigating and, having to question people and are they telling the truth or are they leaving something out or, what do they mean when they say this is a lot of fun for me, is trying to untangle the web, the web that people weave.
Gabe?
Part is the just ability, like when we have to talk to random NPCs, because I've always been a big talker. Had that many people who want to listen because I kind of go on for a long time, and now I have this controlled environment where Jeremy has to create unique characters that have to listen to me. I get to have interactions that I would probably never be able to have in an age where no one really wants to talk to anybody. So
yeah, it's all digital, which is satisfying.
Digital.
I mean,
all right, last question for the evening. Quizzic wants to know who or what inspired the character you are currently playing, and when it comes to character creation, where do you look for inspiration?
Ooh. I wanted something for Jack Whiteside that was had a dark past to make him who he was. Like that, you're chasing the hero aspect to be better than where you came from. So that's what got me into researching witchcraft and voodoo and stuff like that, and experiencing some of that as a child, coming from that into the FBI where you had a little bit more resources to pull and push. That's why I created that. Again, tug of war. Central theme here.
Matthew?
Anybody?
Inspiration. Talk about it.
I wonder whose character is inspired by.
Rocky, before he was an Arroyo brother, just kind of straight out started up as he started as kind of like the spy master. Is where I wanted him. I wanted him to be, maybe one or two levels above the investigators and kind of like manipulating them around a little bit. And then it kind of came down to where it is now, to where he has, a degree of an edge over the other two because of his knowledge of the mystical and the occult and that kind of training. But in some aspects, he's just as clueless as everyone else is. And I think that's a really fun place to be and a really fun line to walk.
So your inspiration was Spy Kids. Got it. Okay, Gabe?
Specifically Spy Kids
Machete.
3D, game over.
4, but my first character I've created on public platform, and I mean over my lifetime I've created hundreds of characters for hundreds of different things because I like to just make things, and storytelling's always been a lot of fun for me. But being that this really was my first character in a public platform, I just kind of went with the wrestler approach, where you take who you are and dial that up to 11, which
Yep.
I know that might be scary to some of you to know that a person like Roy might exist out in the real world. But really,
Gabe's just had a 10.5, so he had to amp him up to 11 for
and
Roy.
it just made me and made him louder and more impulsive. And that's the way I took it, and I've just been rolling with it. I mean, I'm a pretty brash individual, and I say what I want to say and do what I want to do. And
my body.
say that that's a lot of fun to be around, and it's a lot of fun to see. So I figured it'd be a lot of fun for people to listen to as well.
All right. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Lovecraft Tapes. Thank you for listening.
Woo!
Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Music, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere you download your regular podcasts. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review. Meanwhile, you can find us at thelovecrafttapes.com with links to all our hashtag recommendos and social media channels, including Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, and our Discord server, where you can chat with us in real time. You can find me on Twitter at Lovecraft Tapes.
And if anybody wants to spit any more character ideas at me just so I'm ready for the next scenario, you can find me on Twitter at TheRealWeirdKid.
If anybody that have ever ran into me in the past wants to criticize me for my actions, you can find me at Lovecraft Gabe.
And if anybody wants to see everything that I like and retweet, you can find me at Prime Podcasts.
All right. Well, until next time, roll for ASMR.
No! Gross.
All right. Good night, guys. Thanks for watching.
Good night.